So Google apparently used the phrase AI over 140 times in their Google I/O keynote. Apple at WWDC didn't mention it once. However, they did make some very interesting updates to iOS, and for the first time in a long time, I'm really excited about it. And yes, I am travelling, if you hadn't noticed, hence the lack of normal studio location. WWDC has finished for another year, and I think, like I mentioned a moment ago, I never get that excited about iOS. It tends to be the least interesting thing for me, or it has been over the last 2 or 3 years. However, I think there are 7 updates in iOS 17 that are really interesting, which I want to share with you today, but not before a quick word from today's sponsor, which is Casekoo and their fantastic new product. CloudCush isn't just a case for your iPhone, it's a case that cares. That's because it uses air cushion technology, which offers cloud-like, full edge protection for your iPhone. Despite this, it still offers a solid grip while effectively absorbing shocks thanks to its 3-meter military-grade drop resistance. And like all Casekoo stuff, CloudCush feels fantastic in the hand. It's definitely a case that I've been able to use for extended periods of time without any fatigue, which sometimes happens with iPhone cases. So if you use your phone a lot for gaming, texting, or anything else, the CloudCush is for you. To find out more, click that link in the description. Okay, so vlogging with luggage and a coffee and impending rain, if you can hear that thunder, isn't easy. But the first thing on my list is changes they've made to the phone app and FaceTime, neither of which sound very exciting. But the phone app changes are pretty interesting, I think. So it's this continued thing that Apple has about personalizing iOS, and you get this thing called the contact poster, which is basically a picture of you or your Memoji, although does anyone still use Memojis? And basically, when you've set up that contact poster, whenever you call someone, it's shared with that person on their screen, so they see you or your Memoji, basically. It's not going to completely transform your iPhone, but it does make it a little bit more personal, which is a nice thing. We're also getting something called live voicemail, which is when, if you send a call to voicemail, it uses machine learning to transcribe that message. So if it's a junk call, you can just ignore it, or if it's your mum with a very important message, you can choose to answer it. That's a bit 80s answer phone machine, but we'll let them off. It's a nice, very useful feature. And as mentioned earlier, FaceTime has had a bit of a spruce as well, so you can now leave voice or video messages for people if they miss your FaceTime call. I really like that. And finally, we can use the Apple TV for FaceTime calls. Basically, you use your phone, you put your phone beneath or above the TV, and that acts as the camera. And then you see your loved ones or your colleagues or whatever on your TV. That's really smart. Every year, Apple does something at WWDC, particularly with the iPhone, where you think, that's such an obvious update, but equally, why has no one thought of it before? This year, I think that award goes to Standby, which is basically this mode where you take your iPhone and you start charging it, and as long as it's in horizontal landscape mode, you can put that screen to use. It looks absolutely brilliant. You can keep an eye on the time, you can check the weather, you can interact with things like the music app, or you can have a slideshow of your favorite photos. It's even compatible with live activities, which are those things that came in last year, where you can have live football scores, your update on your Uber delivery or your Uber ride. All of that stuff can be displayed on this standby mode while it's charging and docked. They've even added the Night Rider mode from the Apple Watch Ultra. Thumbs up. I think it's pretty clear that Apple is looking to unify its operating system experience across all of their different devices with widgets, unbelievably. So basically on the Mac, on iPadOS, on iOS, and even watchOS, we get these widgets, which are all designed in the same way and seem to have the same kind of functionality. And in iOS 17, we're going to get interactive widgets, which, yes, I know, it's unbelievable we haven't had them so far. I know you've had them on Android for a long time, but yeah, finally, interactive widgets are coming to iOS, and that will make them far more useful. Next up, we have changes to AirDrop, which again aren't going to set your world alight, but for someone who uses AirDrop all the time. So basically, when I need to transfer any kind of media, be it a video or photo, from my iPhone to my Mac as part of this production process, I use AirDrop. Now in iOS 17, we're getting 2 updates. The first one is Name Drop, which is a fairly obvious and brilliant name, which basically means that you can take your iPhone and if you want to swap your contact details, complete with your poster, as I mentioned earlier, with someone else, you just move your phone next to theirs and it initiates the transfer. The next AirDrop update sounds really good. However, there are some unanswered questions. So basically, if you start transferring a fairly large file, if it's a video file for instance, with someone, and you have to go away, so you start the transfer and you get called away, at the moment you have to wait for it to finish. With iOS 17, you'll be able to leave once you've initiated the transfer and allow the rest of the transfer to take place over the internet. Now there are lots of questions with this, like I say. So for instance, does it work with any type of file, or is it certain sized files that it works with? You know, if you have a 2 gig video file for whatever reason, will that work? Or, as some people have suspected, is it working on the basis that you already have the photos and videos in your iCloud library? Therefore, you initiate the transfer locally, and then when you leave and depart that other person, the iCloud version takes over. Who knows? Regardless, if it's what it says it is, it sounds very interesting. Next up is the Journal app. So this was rumoured 2 or 3 months ago, and when those rumours first started surfacing, the developer of Day One, which is a very popular journaling app that I use and many other people use, but the developer of that app was kind of forced to reiterate their commitment to developing the best possible journaling app, because let's be honest guys, if Apple get involved in this and release their own journaling app, it's not good news for apps like Day One. And the way this app works is that it pulls together things like your fitness data, so workouts and stuff you've done, music you've played, locations you've been to, all completely privacy focused like it always is with Apple. And it pulls that together and then gives you a prompt for that day, so you can start writing about your experience that day, how you're feeling, all that sort of stuff. It's all about emotional well-being. Journaling, like I say, it's something that I do quite regularly. It's a great thing to do. As expected, Apple's first version of this looks pretty good. The only thing to bear in mind is that at the moment, I think it's only available on the iPhone. For me, it has to be on the Mac and also the iPad. Until that happens, I'll stick with Day One. It's inevitable, isn't it? At some stage, Journal is going to come across to the other devices. Next up, the keyboard. Have you ever wanted to type out ducking? No. You've wanted to say something else, and chances are you've probably wanted to say it quite a few times. At the moment, iOS will not let you do that. The good news is, in iOS 17, it will remember your preferred words. And it gives us predictions for what we might want to type next, like, Google Docs. Excuse the profuse sweating, it's boiling in London today. Number 7 on my list is the changes to AirPods, mainly AirPods Pro, I think, which I know isn't strictly a iOS 17 update, but you will need iOS 17 to make these things work. And they spoke about this at length during the keynote, but basically the gist of it is that it will use a mixture of the adaptive noise cancelling and transparency mode to give you the best possible listening experience no matter what your environment is. So as your listening environment changes, if you go through busy streets that start to get really loud, or if you walk past a marching band as we saw at WWDC, your AirPods Pro will adapt the sound so that you can hear it better and that you don't blast your eardrums to smithereens. When it arrives in iOS 17, I'll give it a thorough testing. And when you bear in mind how good the active noise cancelling and transparency mode already are on the AirPods Pro, how can it get any better? Now there were several more updates to iOS 17 which I don't have much interest in, to be honest, hence not really mentioning them in this video. First one is stickers. They've got these new sticker things, but I'm 42. Secondly, you'll be able to hail Siri by saying just the word or the name Siri, not the hey bit. Nice. But I would love to know, guys, what have I missed out in this list? What are you looking forward to in iOS 17? And more importantly, what do you think they've missed out on? What do you want to see in iOS 18 that we're not getting later this year? Let me know in the comments. And if you've still got some time, hang around for a link to a video where I give my full reaction to iPadOS 17. I so badly need a shower. I'm so sorry about the production of this video, but hopefully it was interesting.